All right, Casey, why don't you tell us, like in 30 seconds, what your business says?
Absolutely. So we go direct to seller. That's part of the kind of the first business I built out to where we could actually control the lead flow, bring us the best deals, and then we actually do in-house construction, kind of out of necessity over the last couple of years because we invest in Wyoming, which is our kind of niche market. Not enough contractors, so I fought GCs for years and years. I'm like, you know what? Once I had enough jobs going and enough rental properties, we brought in-house construction. And the last thing we do is property management. Again, probably one thing that I mean, I've been doing it for 15 years since I bought my first rental. I've just continued to build it out. Now I've got a team of VAs that actually do it, and they coordinate with our contractors. And I lied. One last one is we now raise capital to fund the whole thing.
Cool. So somebody who's passively wanting to invest in real estate could give you money, you give them a return, and it allows you to build your portfolio.
Absolutely. I always say, like, most people aren't like me and don't want to manage the rentals. They definitely don't want to manage contractors, and they don't want to be negotiating, hunting down deals. So we can build that vertically integration and actually transfer that to our investors.
How many wholesale deals versus rentals do you acquire?
Man, people always ask that, like, are you a wholesaler? I'm like, man, I would love to wholesale more, but we probably wholesale about 20% of our deals. And this year our goal is to do 100 deals. So we'll probably wholesale 20, and then we'll fix and flip probably another 40. We do some novations. Actually, a lot of our transactions involve some component of creative, right? Whether seller's financing, or we're taking over a sub-2 loan and flipping it, or like we said, novations.
Got it. When did you do your first off-market deal?
Oh, my first off one. It was the very first property, 2010. It was my college roommate. His dad owned the house, and he was selling it, and he came to me. I didn't actually pursue this one, but he's like, hey, my dad's going to sell this house. He was like, why don't you buy it? Why doesn't your dad buy it? Because in this college town in Laramie, it's just weird thing that a lot of people do, because because in Wyoming, there's only one 4-year school. So a lot of people will actually, their parents will buy the house, right? And their daughter and their son and their 3 kids go to school. And then when they're done at the house, they sell it.
So
I was the buyer.
Yeah. Nice. What'd you do with it?
Yeah. So I still own this house to this day. So I bought it at the time. It was a really cool story. My dad, and it's actually, go ahead.
You're going to school there?
Yeah, exactly.
So it was your turn to take it over.
Exactly.
Got
Yep.
it.
So I was actually the last. No, I was actually. I'm the middle son. But it was actually, I only had 2 years left at the school. But what I did is I went to my dad after my roommate proposed that to me. I'm like, hey, Dad, why don't you buy it? And my dad's like, well, I don't know. I might, Casey. He's like, why don't you buy it? I'm like, okay, I hadn't thought about that. Well, let's go. So we went down, talked to U.S. Bank, went through all the process. My dad, luckily, he co-signed, and we used about $10,000 of my college savings. I actually played football, so I hadn't used all my college savings yet. So I used $10,000 as a down payment, bought that first one, and yeah. So now I went from paying, I don't know, my rent was maybe $400 a month to where now I got the other 3 roommates paying me, so I covered my living expenses, and it's been cash flowing ever since.
They call that house hacking in the industry.
That's right, house hacking.
So what'd you do when you graduated and scored all those touchdowns?
That's
right. What happened next?
Yeah, and that's where, again, probably limiting beliefs, right? It was more so coming from friends and family, like, oh man, you moved out, like, how are you going to manage it? Are you going to sell this thing? I'm like, no, man, it's making money. It's making cash flow. So luckily my brother moved in after I did. So I had that kind of 2-year kind of handover spot where he was there. I still had somebody I trusted. But then when my brother moved out, like, he was paying a discounted rent. But when he moved out, I was able to rent his room out at full market. And then I've just kept it since, just kept it cash flowing over the years.
Got it. When did you do your next deal after that?
Yeah, this is probably where it like really compounds, right? So a lot of people think, oh man, you had that first one and you got 250 units now, you must have just been going steadily. I actually waited, so this is 2010. I went to work for Shell. That was my full-time W-2 gig. And I just focused on my training and my W-2 job for several years. But what happened was, like a lot of other people, I was out in the field and we worked for 2 weeks on the rig and then we'd have 2 weeks off. But even when I'm on the rig, right, I'm driving for, I call it windshield time, right? All this in the field. We'd have all this time where you're driving location to location. So I started reading. I was like, well, first I was just like listening to music or listening to sports talk radio. I'm like, I could make a better use of my time, right? So that's when I read, another guy recommended reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So like a lot of people, I read that. And then again, light bulb starts to come on. Then I go down this like rabbit hole of like all of Brandon Turner's books and Bigger Pockets podcasts. So now I've kind of realized I've got this asset and it's clicking, this first house, right? But it's my only one. So what I did is I read all those books. I went and bought a second property, but this is the coolest thing is I I had done some improvements to that property over the years. And rather than saving up a bunch of money to buy a bunch of property like a lot of people do, I went to the bank and I refinanced that first one, and I was able to pull out $50,000. And with that $50,000, I bought another house, which I went and created value. Actually, it was a single family house that had its separate entrance, so we made it into a duplex. And man, by the time I did this project, I always love telling this, by the time I did it and I refinanced it, I was making $1,000 a month cash flow. And again, that $1,000 a month came from, it came out of basically, I mean, not out of thin air, but I didn't have to save any money. I just used the equity from the first one to buy the second one. Now I had $1,000 a month of cash flow. Dang. From there, it was game on.
Yeah. Well, what happened next?
Yeah. So then I'm like, okay, how do we find more of these?
Yeah.
Right? And then that's when I started to figure out, how do I start finding deals off market? Right? Because the market started to heat up. I was also seeing like fixing and flipping, and whenever I could do value add, that was how I was really able to create equity. And that was probably the other component, right? Is I had a good job, a good W-2 job, but I still wasn't making enough money to be putting $50,000 down every couple of months or every 6 months, maybe one a year at that point, right? Is how much you could actually save. So I'm like, how do I do more of these and scale this? And that was through creative finance, raising money, and value add, like all three of those things. Because I had to create that 25% equity somehow, which I know you love it. I was doing the BRRRR strategy.
That's right. It's because you get a loan for your property, typically getting 75% loan to value. So if you can buy a house for 25, put 25 into it, and get it to be worth 100, you're only 50 in, or 75 in. You get the money back. Exactly.
I was trying to find those deals, and back, that was 2015, 2016, 2017. Back then, you could even find those deals in Wyoming. You could find them on the market, believe it or not. But then as things really heated up back in when COVID hit, or probably prior to COVID hitting, the market had heated up. It was harder to find those deals. So that's when I started going direct to seller.
Where did you get your mindset that thought the rental property from college was a good idea to keep instead of keep passing it on like so many people have done before? I mean, they could have done the same thing. They could have held on to it, rented it out, but they didn't want to do that. What is the difference between their mindset and your mindset?
Yeah, I would say, and I didn't have it right away. Initially, I just had it because I was making a little bit of cash flow from it each month. And I also like the tax write-off, honestly. Each year, I was able to get more. Like I would say this since 2000, and I mean, people that bag on Trump are right about his tax returns. Like I've been doing that too since I started my job, because I've always had real estate assets to where every single year I've always got a tax refund, right? A lot of times, and probably more than I should. Honestly, I should be, well, back then, I guess they're already taken out of your W-2 check,
right.
So you didn't have a choice. But I think, so I had that mindset. And then when I bought the second one, and I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I had that mindset of, wow, this is an asset. And you know what, David, I think my favorite one is leverage. The fact that I could go buy an asset and I could leverage up to, well, in some situations, I could buy it cheap enough to where I could do 100% leverage, right? But let's say I just put 25% down, like a normal investment property, right? I'm getting like a 4-to-1 multiple on my equity, right? Because say the house is worth $100K for easy math, all right? Let's say today's world, that's not happening. Let's say it's worth $1 million, and I put $250,000 down, right? But the house is worth $1 million. Every year, if I'm getting, say, 5% appreciation, I get 5% on $1 million, right? So that's why I was thinking, if I can make this in cash flow, and now I'm leveraging on $1 million, I was like, what other industry, what other asset class can you leverage like that?
Yeah. The tax code is long. It's written not to have you determine how much you pay, but it's written to let you know how much you don't have to pay. Because if you think about it, everyone pays the same basic tax rate federally. And the tax code is so long because it describes so many ways that you don't have to pay taxes. So taking advantage of that is the smart thing to do. They want you to do that. That's why it's written that way.
Absolutely. I always tell people, the federal government wrote it to incentivize us to buy real estate, right? The government does not want to publicly, or doesn't want to, they want the private sector to own real estate.
Right. So what would you say to somebody who thinks, well, the interest rates are too high to get invested in real estate now?
Yes. I mean, I asked myself the same question a couple of years ago when rates started to climb up, right? And fortunately, I had a kind of a head start, as I'd already been doing creative finance, right? Because I was doing it out of necessity, because again, I didn't want to always have to go to the bank and borrow money. And I was trying to scale, right? So I was now using like commercial loans or hard money lenders, right? So I'm like, even at that time, I was thinking, how do I buy more property with favorable terms, right? So I was already doing some form of creative finance, whether that was finding a property free and clear and just negotiating with the seller and finding terms that work, or taking over a loan sometimes subject to the current loan and structuring that to where I was protected and could take advantage of that rate.
Yeah.
So when COVID hit, or actually it was after COVID hit, right? And we saw those crazy rates and then we started to climb back up. That's when I'm like, all right, now I need to lean into this and get even better at it. So now that's what I would say, yeah, actually we've done the math on our deal flow. I did it last year and I saw that 90% of our deals were some form of creative finance. And we did that because of the market. So a long way of saying, I think it's still an incredible opportunity for people to go buy if you can structure it right. Again, if you're talking to a seller that's free and clear, or talking to somebody who refinanced a couple years ago. Because believe it or not, there's a ton of people that took advantage when rates were really low a couple years ago, and they kept those rates. Now, if you can find those sellers now that have to sell in kind of a rough market where things maybe aren't moving as much, that's where you can find kind of a cool win-win.
Mm-hmm. What would you say if I were Dave Ramsey? How would you tell me that the way you use debt is a good idea?
Yes, it's a great point. I think, again, and I've learned this the hard way, just like a lot of other people, right? You can't over leverage. I learned it in 2017, 2018, where we were using private money and we're using hard money. And we had some success, right? We were doing the burst strategy really well. And we done it like on 5 properties, went great. So we're like, all right, let's go do some fix and flips to like fund, make more cash, and do that way we could keep doing more burst strategies and just kind of keep feeding the rental portfolio. But what I found was, yeah, that was way too risky. We weren't keeping enough cash. We weren't accounting for all the bad things that could happen, contractors, seasonality, all these different things. So what I learned was cash reserves, right? If you're going to use leverage, you got to keep cash reserves. And it's always a hard balance as a real estate investor because we don't like to have our cash sitting idle, right? So that's one big one. But my second biggest one is 2 exit strategies, right? If I'm going to do a fix and flip now, and this is why I love Wyoming as a market. It's really hard to do this. Like I live in Houston and people are like, why don't you invest in Houston? Well, in Houston, it's a lot harder to make numbers work and cash flow on a rental property because prices have gone up, taxes and insurance, right? But in Wyoming, I could still have my 2 exit strategies. I could still go buy a single family house for $150K and put $50K into it. And then if I can sell it for $250, $300, awesome. We just cashed out. Let's do that all day. Mm-hmm. But there are some that don't go as well as you want, or sometimes the market corrects. And those ones, I always love that I'll just keep those as rentals because anybody who's really built wealth in real estate is by the stuff they held on to. So if we hold on to it, we're still going to win. Yeah. Holding on to it's been a great thing for me. They say property values will double every 10 years on average. And man, I had appreciation of $1 million in 5 years just on 9 rentals. So it made me realize I should have kept more deals. I should have done more deals. So I was very motivated and I went right out and started my marketing up once I realized that. Yeah. Oh yeah. And you're doing it in good markets that are appreciating a lot. So just Indianapolis for me. Indianapolis. Okay. Yeah. It's kind of like a stock or a bond, right? It's like not going to be having huge spikes, but it just always climbs up, which is nice. So what would you tell somebody who thinks that it's too late? Because when I was getting invested in real estate, I looked at my boss. He had 5 rentals, and I was like, well, you got them in 2008. You're really lucky you were into real estate investing at that time. But now that I've been doing it for 8 years, people in my Instagram will see the deals I'm breaking down and say, you're just so lucky you did that back in 2016. And it's funny because I remember thinking the same thing. What would you tell somebody who thinks it's too late to invest in real estate? Yeah, well, you pretty much just hit it right there. It's never too late because if you start now, the same people that are saying that now, and they're going to say the same things in 5 years and in 10 years. They're going to look back and see, oh man, I wish I would have started in 2025 when interest rates were high and there weren't as many buyers, right? Like I think right now, like we're really bullish on what's happening right now in the market because I think as soon as rates drop down, they haven't solved the inventory problem. So I think prices are going to go right back up. Right. So I think you could actually time the market right now and you're going to be sitting, you're going to look back and be like, heck yeah, I'm glad I got in. But even if not, all right, let's say that this is the top or that we don't see maybe a correction, right? And it over time though, it's just going to keep taking care of itself. The biggest thing though is what we talked about earlier. It's cash flow, right? And having 2 exits, making sure you can hold on to this because if you can hold on through the tough times, and this is actually something I've learned here at this mastermind we're here at, as Collective Genius from the old guys, right? They're like, they went through 2008, and if you didn't have enough cash and you couldn't hold on in 2008, it didn't matter how big your portfolio was. Most of those guys went down and crashed and burned. So if you can grow sustainably and keep enough cash, you just got to ride out the waves and you'll be fine.
Speaking of waves, I think as a business owner, we've all had some lows. I was curious if you could feel comfortable telling us about maybe one of your lowest lows that you experienced.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it a little bit earlier about like when we were fixing and flipping, using private money, using hard money. Man, I'll never. Those were some of the hardest times because, oh, yeah,
You got
a two part.
overextended, didn't keep enough cash in the bank, and
Exactly.
expenses hit, and you were sweating.
Bingo. Yeah, and it was hard with two. And I'll go into a little bit of detail. I'll never forget it. I remember we had a house. It finally the last sort of straw that hit the camel's back was we had a fix and flip that we thought was going to sell. Now all of a sudden the sale falls through. That was going to keep us going to get these things moved and these projects finished and be able to reset. Well, that house doesn't sell, so I'll never forget having to call my hard money lender first and be like, "Hey, we can't make our payments. We got to get this thing sold. Like, what can we do?" And I'll never forget one guy was it was two. It was a tale of two stories. One hard money lender was like a shark, and it was miserable. And they were sending us like the legal documents, like the notice of default, like the day after our payment was late. Right, it was crazy. But the second hard money lender was like a mentor of mine, and he helped me a ton. He's like, "Casey, I've been there." He's like, "Here's what you got to do. You got to start dropping those. You got to drop those houses you have that aren't finished. You got to drop them 10,000 every week until you get them moved, and you've got to figure this thing out." And that's what I did. We got them sold. And the other hard part was working with our private money lenders. Right, they were behind them, and things were going well. And those were those phone calls were not fun. I remember having to call those guys and be like, "Hey, we got to sell this thing, and we need time." And at least I remember one of them specifically. I was like, "Hey, we got to sell this thing today, and I've got to get this thing gone, and I'm not giving up. I'll be back." Right. And we had to, man, we got knocked down, our teeth kicked in, actually had to sell part of another business to survive it. But we learned the lesson. We came back, and like even that guy, I was able to eventually pay back years later, and he gave me the grace to help me get through that. But yeah, it was tough.
Dang, that's crazy how two different private lenders could act so differently.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
did you do more deals with the good one?
Oh yeah, he's still a mentor of mine to this day.
Did you do more deals with the shark?
Oh no, for sure. And it taught you though. And I mean, until then, you don't know. You haven't been in that situation. Now I try to tell other people, like, you got to understand your lender and what they're like. Are they truly aligned with you? And know, yeah. I mean, until you get in that situation, you don't know what colors are going to show.
Yeah. What was one of the high points that you've experienced as a business owner?
I think I'd like to share like a family one. It was when I was able to leave my full-time job, right? And I'm not a big proponent of like everybody should go leave their job as fast as they can to be an entrepreneur, because I actually think a lot of the passive investors I work with, I think they should do what they're good at. Like they should make as much money they can at what their expertise is, and then rely on the experts to invest, right? But I was really personally proud of this one because I had spent a lot of time working my W-2 job, but I was really intentful. Because it's a longer story, but I was having to miss a lot of the important stuff with my kids because I was working in the field and I was always working. I was out in West Texas, and people seen Landman, that series, right? That was me. That was me working out in West Texas, like in the oil fields, away from my kids, right? And I was like, hey, I don't want to be out here forever. So I started working hard in real estate, buying rentals, fixing and flipping, building this business, right? So when I finally had the day to choose, and I'll never forget it, I'm riding with my wife home in the car, and it came after one of my son's baseball games. Right, and I was there, and I was so excited, and we're just all excited from the game. But I was about to go to work for the next 3 weeks, and I was going to miss like 2 or 3 or 4 games, well, for work, right? And I'm like, Annie, I'm not going to continue to do this, right? We've built up this company. I've built up this. I've got an off ramp. I've got enough stability, and like ultimately, I don't want to look. And I always try to think from this perspective. When I'm sitting on my deathbed, I don't want to look back. At that point, your life's going to flash before your eyes. And I had clarity at that moment. I don't want to look back and be like, I'm glad I stayed at that W-2 job for those extra couple years to play it extra safe but to miss all those games, right? So the reasons why it's my proud moment is because I had hustled and I had worked hard for that moment to be able to make that decision. Mm-hmm. Like that's what made me so proud that I was able to make that decision, go with it. And it's a story I want to tell my kids for years that, hey, I ended up walking away from my W-2 job because I didn't want to miss those moments.
That's right. Man, when you're first starting out, you get paid for your hustle, and then your skills expand, and you could make maybe $100,000, and then past $1 million. It's like based on leadership. You're focused on the decisions that you make, right? The execution is done by others on your team, but it feels like you're just really proud of that decision. So you're
absolutely,
yeah.
That's why it's a passion of mine too, like to help other people. Like that's why I work with a lot of oil and gas people that I used to work with for years, and I sat in their shoes, right, where they are working all the time. They're having to choose work over family, right? When it comes down to it, that's what's paying their bills, and they feel like they have to make that decision. So that's why I'm so passionate about helping people build passive income to where that decision might not be the right decision today, but I want them to get to the point where if they're given that decision of work or family, at least they can make the choice.
Mm-hmm. That's got to be very rewarding for you to be able to help other people on their path to earning that passive income, financial freedom through either lending when they lend you money, right? Are you actually selling rental properties as well, or are you owning your entire portfolio, just doing private money lending?
Yeah, we do 3 different ways, right? So you covered the one where they're just a lender in a bank. That's
Yeah.
the easiest, right? Some people, though, want to buy like turnkey. So yeah, we find our deals off market, fix them up, and we can even help with the management is a second way. And the other one is if they just want to be completely passive, but get the equity. I've got our fund now, which is more of we actually fix and flip and we do buy and holds through that fund. So that's a way to be completely passive, but be able to get the same sort of gains and depreciation that I do as a real estate investor.
What do you think you'd be doing now if you hadn't found real estate investing?
Yeah, I think I'd be, you know what? I always wanted to work for Shell and actually go overseas. And I wanted to do like expat assignments. Like one of my dreams was to go work in like either Argentina or the Netherlands, or go work in a cool place around the world for Shell. So I would at least hope that I was getting to travel the world working for Shell. But then again, I've just realized, like, as you have kids, it's just more important to have the kids. Like, we have lived in one of the best countries in the world. So I'm much happier being stay put here, and then I can make enough money to go travel and see those places.
Yeah. Have you taken any trips recently or have any upcoming?
Yeah, actually heading out day after tomorrow, heading to Jamaica for spring break with the kids. So
awesome.
We're doing that. Yep. And then we're planning a Europe trip. We'll see. We haven't took the kids to Europe, so we'll see how that goes. We're planning to go to Italy in May.
Oh, that'd be so amazing as a kid. I didn't get to go till I was an adult, but that'd be so cool to have that experience. And you've already taken your kids out of the country, I assume, and they're going next week too. So good on you.
Yeah, I'm excited. They love it. That's the biggest thing, man. It's like you work hard and you make the money, but it's like, what do you want to do with it, right? I want to be able to help other people, and then also want to be able to do the things with my family, like when we want, like what I want, when I want, with whom I want.
As we wrap up, what are you looking forward to most this year other than your Jamaica trip?
I'm looking forward to, I've been investing a lot of time too with other masterminds and other groups and helping other investors. And I found that there's just a lot of new people that want to get into the game, but they haven't done their first deal and they're not quite sure where to start. And again, we're part of like masterminds like this where I've had like great mentors that have helped me. So, and I just love, by heart, I just love coaching, right? So I'm really excited to help more of those people out, right? And whether it's doing deals with them or having opportunities to speak on other stages and be able to share my experience. Like that's why I love like being on this podcast and doing other stuff with DealMachine, is like getting to help other people and help them do their first deal. Like a lot of times, and it's mutually beneficial, right? There's so many times where I'll go do a deal with somebody who's new to real estate that maybe they'll bring it to me, and maybe they need help with the exit strategy or the construction, whatever, maybe just the capital, right? Whatever it may be, but we can help them go do a deal. Our team's going to make money, but the biggest thing is they're going to do a deal, right? And now they can go to that second one. Hopefully, maybe they can do it completely without us. That'd be great.
I've been able to help a couple CG members with data. Chad Young wanted to know where double lots were, how to find those, or what he couldn't find a filter on his county website for that. And then Luke Caraccio actually wanted to expand their agent outreach strategy. So I got him a list of the agents in his market by deal volume, but also their LinkedIn profiles and all kinds of personal info. So I'm curious, we've grown 44% because of the data we introduced at DealMachine in the last year and a half. But we used to be known for driving for dollars, but that's just been a big driver for us. So I'm trying to discover if there's any data things I could help you with. Maybe like a tough data point you've never been able to pull or filter by, anything like that come to mind with you?
Yeah, and I've been loving actually using your guys' data, because what I like about DealMachine is I can get like bulk data at a good cost. Actually the best cost I've seen. And we like using it because we still do a lot of cold calling, and we're leveraging AI to do cold calling as well. And then I actually have students, I was telling Matt this today, we'll cold call the data with AI, and then I'll have students calling behind them, whoever actually answers. And that way they don't have to be calling through this AI or this big call list and spending all their time just trying to get on the phone. They use the AI to get a hold of them, and then they'll call them back. So I love that part about it. I would say a couple things, like just being able to find more accredited investors, especially in my niche.
Interesting.
Right?
That's a great filter. Yeah.
And even if you could find oil and gas ones, because what I find is my
Well, there actually
best
is a net
avatar-
worth filter.
Really? Okay.
So you could find people that to be a accredited investor, what do you have to have a net worth of over $1 million
Million, yeah.
or an income of $200,000?
Yeah,
Those are both consumer data fields in our data set.
that'd be perfect.
Yeah.
And then I could even just do it in markets to where I know there was a high concentration of oil and gas people. Not that it matters, but those are the people that like I can really resonate and help.
I cut you off because I got so excited to tell you that. Was there something else in addition to that you were telling me?
I think that's the biggest one, other than okay, well, this is the other one, and I did it with your mastermind the other day. Is we call it our revive method, where we find properties. So the avatar is a property that needs work, right? And typically years of ownership is a good one to pull. But ultimately, I'm looking for people who have equity. The property needs work, and they need to sell. Because what we'll do is we'll take over their loan, and then we'll do the renovation, and then we'll actually pay them a profit share on the back end. So it's kind of a win-win for everybody. So being able to target those, but the biggest thing is trying to target like the stuff that needs work. That needs, or that there's value add potential.
Okay. So are you not able to target those now?
We are. I mean, we're able to target. We can obviously target the years of ownership. We could target. You know what? We could just target equity, knowing, we could target the equity list. I guess the thing is, does it need repairs? Which maybe your ability.
Couple things you could do for that. Currently, a lot of counties, they'll have the property assessor put the building condition in. So there's literally just a field that you could filter by in DealMachine that says building condition.
Oh, wow.
That's where that comes from. So I would check that out as well.
Okay.
Also, you can narrow down the list and then have AI look at the photo, the Google photo. And so it can find out is there a tarp on the roof? Is there signs of distress or overgrown grass or rusty fences or peeling paint or anything like that, falling off gutter? The AI can tell based on the Google photo. So that is a cost of 2 cents per property to analyze. So you want to filter down your list first to properties that have been owned for over 5 years, properties that are within your square footage, bedrooms, bath range, properties that would be in your total value, estimated value range. Then have the AI look at that narrowed down list. So it's more cost effective to do that, but it's cheaper than driving around yourself or paying someone to drive that around.
There you go.
Yeah, that would be the second option that you could go through. Have you ever used that AI feature?
I haven't yet.
Okay.
And I was thinking I was going to need to start to recruit drivers, but that would be a much.
Well, that's a third way. I would definitely try the first two ways first, especially the county assessor filter, because if your county does that, it'll be populated and you'll have a nice list to start with.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah. What else?
Man, one of my goals I mentioned too is just getting to speak on more stages, right? That's one thing I love about CG is you get to present and you get to practice that skill. Because as I mentioned, I just want to help more people, and whether it's passive investors or even people that want to get their first deal. Right. So my goal, and you've I think done a good job of that, is how to. I know it'll definitely compound, right? Once you start to get on bigger stages and present and build some credibility. But that's one of my big goals this year and even going into next year.
Got it. What's the last topic that you got to speak on at CG that you were really proud of?
Yeah, I spoke on. It was back in October it was actually at the Select event. And it was based around it was all about building your brand, right? And having your brand.
I was there with you. Yeah. I just didn't know if you'd spoke additionally, and I hadn't heard that.
No, that was one of my favorite ones.
And you use your brand to attract a lot of private lenders.
Yes.
People who want to passively invest in real estate. You deploy that for them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was one of my favorite ones. And then I think I've given a keynote a couple times on that kind of story. I told you a little bit about why I was able to leave my job and why it's so important to me and how it caused me to sometimes pain can create urgency to go out and do it, right? And my whole keynote is around there's no reason why you can't start it. That was another question you had, right? Why did I do it? Why do not other people not start? And I've just got a lot of different little stories in my life that have propelled me, the college one, right? Who says you can't go buy a rental property when you're 22 years old or even younger than that?
I'll tell you what I think the mindset was between you and them. Just let me know if this is accurate or not. Whenever I was getting involved in real estate investing, my dad had a friend that invested in real estate. He had me read a book. Then I started going to real estate meetups. I knew people that were doing deals every day. So I knew that I could do the business too, because I'm around people who are doing the deals every day. My parents were very concerned that I was going to waste my college degree and have a terrible mess managing rental properties that got trashed. And they were talking with people at their church who had been accidental landlords that had these terrible stories. And they inherited the property, and guarantee you they didn't know how to vet a tenant. Guarantee you they weren't expert on top of proactive communication with that tenant. And so they just didn't deal with it well and told my parents about how horrible it was. So they really thought it was not a good route to go. And so I think it has to do with people around you. Maybe you had somebody in your life that expanded your vision. My parents always saved aggressively, but that friend of my dad's who had his own business taught me you can only save as much as you earn, but you can earn an infinite amount. So it just really flipped my mindset to being, instead of let me save everything that I have, I was like, let me grow into everything that I don't have. And that's unlimited.
Yeah.
Was there somebody in your life that really gave you that mindset?
Yeah, I was similar with my parents. It was like save, save, save.
Mm-hmm.
And then I bought the first property. But I really think it was reading, right? It was that first Rich Dad, Poor Dad book, because that's when I realized the whole assets and liability, right? And then I think reading and listening and I think it was just hearing other people. I actually didn't have, at that point I wasn't surrounding myself in other masterminds. And that's been the other key, right? It's like once I started reading about it, then I'm like, how do I find more like-minded people? When I was like that, around my people, then I was like supercharged.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, thank you for spending time with us, hopefully expanding someone's mind listening in. Before we turn it off, I wanted to turn to Chris behind the camera and see if you've got any questions yourself.
You were saying that the government incentivizes building the tax laws the way they do. So what are three underused tax cheat codes that you don't think because I'll give you an example. I took civics and personal finance in high school, and I didn't learn how to write off anything. I learned how to write a check, which I've never done. So how do I utilize something like that today?
Yeah, the most popular one that a lot of people talk about is bonus depreciation. Right? There's actually rumors that with Trump back in office, it might actually be increased again. But it's a great way for you to go buy an actual asset. So you can go buy a property today, and instead of depreciating it over 27 and a half years, which is still great, like most of us do that, and we get a little bit of a write-off. That's what I was getting when I bought my first property, and I was just working at Shell. And each year I was able to deduct a little bit of my W-2 salary actually at the time. Right? But bonus depreciation allows you to accelerate it to where, rough math, you can get about 20% of the property written off in year one. So to give you kind of how it works for me, let's say that I buy $1 million property, I can write off $200,000 in year one. So if I went and made $200,000 on a flip, and this depends upon what type of your tax treatment, but I can actually write those two things off to where it's a wash. So I don't pay any taxes on that $200K flip, you know what I mean?
Whoa.
But did I lose $200K? No, right? I bought a $200K asset, right?
How many people are not using that, do you think?
Oh, so many. I mean, so many people, right? There's so many
That's
people that I
crazy.
actually work with investors that there's the investors that come to us because, hey, they're like, I want to invest in your fund because I need depreciation. Like I raised $2 million at the end of last year purely based on that. Like they came in and I was able to move a chunk of my portfolio. It was like 8 properties that all had, they just basically bought into them because they wanted to get that bonus depreciation in last year's.
Yeah.
Right, because they had made a bunch of money in 2024. So we closed that deal on December 31st, no joke. And they closed it then. So now when they do taxes this season,
Oh, wow.
they can get it written off.
That's crazy.
But there's still, to answer your question, there's a lot of people who don't know. And that's why I try to spend time educating people, be like, hey, you're making all this money right now. Like you don't have to pay that all back to the government, right? You could depreciate it, right?
Yeah.
Now it'll be recaptured over time. But there's other ways that you can, like a 1030, you can buy more property. You can trade up and just kind of keep kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, the 1031.
Yep.
And is there one or two others that because I never heard of that, what you just said. I think David taught me something last week that was cost segregation, right?
Yeah, it's the same thing. You do a
it's the
cost
same thing.
segregation is the study that you do that gives you the number for how much you can do on bonus depreciation.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
that's the same thing.
They're just
Yep.
different names.
Yeah. Bonus depreciation is what allows you to deduct more money in year one.
Okay.
Yep. But
Okay.
this cost segregation breaks down. You take your property and you pay for cost segregation. It breaks down every component of the property.
Right.
And then you take that and that gives you the calculation of how much you can write off
Okay.
in year one.
Anything else any other like little hacks?
Yeah, another one is cash out refinance. So typically people would do, let's play that out. You bought the property that I just said for $1 million. I wrote off $200K. Well, let's say I want to sell the property to get my money out, or I somehow want to capture, let's say it appreciated in a couple of years, that asset I bought. If I go to sell it, well, now I've got to realize that $200,000 I wrote off, right? So my options are to do a 1031 exchange, but the better option, which I like, is you can go to the bank and you can refinance it. You can pull cash out. So let's say that property now is worth, let's say it's worth $2 million, right? Maybe in 10 years. What I do is I go to the bank might give me a loan for 1.5. And if I only owe $1 million, whatever the difference is, whatever cash I get back, the point is it's tax-free because it's still a loan.
Yeah.
So it's a way that a lot of people do this in multifamily or in just bigger people with more capital, is to where they want to eventually get their capital back so they can recycle it. So rather than selling it and having that's called a capital gain, you'd have to go pay taxes on it. You just do a cash out refinance, you're able to pull out some money, and then you hold on to the asset.
So instead of capital gains, you just do cash out refinance.
Yeah, and then that cash is not taxed.
Okay, that's cool. I didn't know that. And then my last one, I like when you said there's nothing wrong. Like you were saying, there's nothing wrong with a W-2 job, and I agree with you. But there are some people that graduate, high school or college, and they don't want to work an office job, but they also don't have entrepreneurship characteristics. So how would you differentiate the archetypes of an entrepreneur and a future W-2 worker?
Yeah, that's a good point. They want the excitingness,
but
maybe
they
the
don't
sex
want to do
appeal
anything,
of the entrepreneur. Yeah, I think those people need to be careful because they're probably going to bounce back and forth between a lot of different things and not just apply themselves. But I would say, here's what I tell, even if I was telling my kids, go find a job maybe that's somehow related to real estate, right? Maybe you're doing finance. Maybe you're being a lender. Maybe you're working at a title company. Maybe you can just get a job at a wholesale company, but do some sort of job within the real estate industry that's paying your bills and go get that exposure, and then you can start investing on the side. I think that's where you get the best of both worlds, right? Because you can go get a little bit more predictable income, but you get exposure to the industry.
So even if it was something non-real estate, I like that strategy. So you would go find a W-2 job in the same niche.
Yes.
And then see, what's it about,
Yeah, or even a finance role. Just learning. I'm telling you one thing you should learn is finance, right? We don't learn this. I didn't even take finance stuff in college, but I took a bunch of math classes.
Right.
I was an engineer by degree. But I've learned finance from reading books and going to lunch with bankers. That's one of the best things, is I built relationships with small banks. And I don't know, I geek out on it, just hearing terms. And once you learn the finance part of it, man, then it's you can do big things. Even raising money, right? They always say the two highest paying professions or industries is the capital raisers, people on Wall Street that raise funds and raise money, and the people who do real estate. And that's why I'm probably most excited about what we do, is now I'm being able to raise capital because I understand finance, and then we understand real estate and the operation side. So if you combine that, they're just two very highly paid professions.
What's a banker's favorite place to eat?
Ooh, man. Yeah, you want to find the ones. I need to find more bankers that take you to steakhouses, but ours are typically casual lunches.
Okay, that was just for fun.
Or even beer. It's fun too. Or just, go have a beer with them.
Cool.
Find the cool bankers.
Okay, that's it.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Casey.
You bet.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for doing that, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.